Okay, so three topics for today are going to be, and my shirt's inside down, whatever. Three topics for today are going to be Israel versus Iran, England, and what's going to happen, and sports. So let's get into it. So, Israel versus Iran. Basically, nobody saw this coming, and everybody saw this coming. Let me just summarize the situation. Basically, Iran has been funding various groups that are spreading death to Israel for the past 40 years or so. It's been happening for a long time. Um, And so they've been funding Hamas, the West Bank people, whoever they are, Syria, yada yada yada, for basically as long as I've been alive. And what happened basically is over the past 2 years with the war in Israel against Gaza, more and more of Iranians' allies have basically been dropped, whether it be the Houthis or the Gaza or the people in Lebanon, Syria, the Syrian dictatorship of Assad. Basically, the entire train of Iranian allies has been dried up. At the same time, their other main allies are not doing too hot either. So you got Pakistan. I think the allies with, yeah. Um, Basically got their butts kicked by India, and India is currently cutting off water supplies to Pakistan. And then Russia is not exactly losing, but it's obviously very, very distracted by the entire war with Russia and Ukraine. So you put all that together, and Iran is in a kind of a dicey position. Economically, they're doing badly. They got internal revolt going on because they're too strict on some things. And you add that all up together, and about 4 or 5 days ago, Israel decided to launch barra- a barrage of attacks against Iran. Knocked out the entire top brass of the Iranian National Revolutionary Guard, a lot of the nuclear scientists, a lot of the people that Trump was negotiating with in Iran. In Trump's words, they're not coming back to the negotiating table. Also, in Trump's words, they didn't die of COVID. So it's pretty clear what happened. So a few things that are interesting is one, it doesn't sound like we officially planned it as the United States. It also is pretty striking that it took place in the 61st day after Trump said you have 60 days to agree to a deal or you're screwed. So and the United States is basically providing air support and missiles and stuff to Israel. Not directly helping, but basically giving supplies, which is pretty close. So what does all that mean? Israel saw a shot and took it. If there's a country that says they want a nuke you out of existence and they're trying to get nukes, um, and you'd be pretty easy to knock Israel off the map with like, two nukes. It's a pretty small country. That said, I don't think that's the actual reason. I am kind of with Michael Knowles in this one. I think it's an easy shot, and they send a bunch of missiles, and Iran sent a bunch of missiles. But the difference is that Israel sent a bunch of missiles that actually destroyed top brass of Iran. Can you think of anybody in Israel who's a top leadership position who's been killed by these response attacks? No, you can't. There haven't been any. There have been random civilians, but if you're fighting a war between two countries and the leadership classes are making the decision on whether to go to war or not, if one leadership class is getting killed and the other one isn't, uh, the side that is, is not having any top brass casualties is going to keep going. So what's basically happening now is Trump is like, well, we can make a deal. I don't know if Israel will be up for that. Israel seems to be out for blood. They want to depose Iran, right? Why wouldn't they? They're about to win. Um, But the question is what would happen next? And there's every possibility there would be a more extreme regime that would come up, but that would happen next. Frankly, I think the one big lesson is basically don't screw with Israel. Now, the other thing that's funny is you got the Arabian states, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all these different countries are kind of like, I don't know about Qatar. One of them is Shia, might be on Iran's side. But they're kind of looking at this being like, okay, we can whine about this and be against Israel, or we can pretend to be on the winning side. By and large, they're pretending to be on the winning side because they don't like it Ivan either. So they're like, "Yay, I guess this is good." They're just kind of like awkwardly because they know it seems very, very clear that Israel is just decades ahead of all the other countries in the region when it comes to just competence and being able to carry out attacks. They're like way ahead. It's basically what the United States was doing with nation building, so-called nation building in Iraq, except done competently and with an actual goal of just destroying. They they don't have any. They don't want to do nation building. They're like, no, we're destroying our enemies. Israel is scary, man. Don't mess with them. Um, which I'm glad at least one civilized country is actually willing to defend itself. That's what it comes down to for me. Is that like you got all these countries, and it seems like chaos and degeneracy and um, stupidity basically spreading across the entire world, and smart, civilized, cultured people are being who care about freedom of speech and arguing and all that kind of stuff are retreating. Israel and England. Basically, there was a news story that apparently English people are going to be a minority in their own country within like 20 years. It's like really, really close. It's not even far. Um, might be 30 years. I forget which it is, and that's probably going to happen just because the conservatives just don't have anybody with political power who has enough cojones to actually do deportations or to even stop immigration. Like Nigel Farage just doesn't have the guts for it. He's like going to be a madness decline guy. And I like Nigel Farage. He seems like a likable guy, but he's not the guy they need to basically change things. Um, the Dunn, Robert Dunn, I think his name is, stronger, but he's not going to be in charge of a party. Got the voters those guys, and like God bless them, but like, they're not going to win. They're not going to like be a political force that's actually strong enough to strike back. And what is that likely to be? Well, that's the question that's gonna be interesting. At the same time, is Islam is definitely increasing in England. Christianity is getting stronger in England. So, and then the other thing that's interesting is you have all these other groups that are in England too. Um, African Christians, Indian Hindus, different groups. Smart money's in Islam just because they always tend to win these kind of deals. But if everybody else ganged up against them, that'll be a different story. Um, but it just goes to show, like, I'm not sure exactly how everything's going to turn out. I'll be watching closely because I follow a lot of English. I follow the Lotus Eaters a lot. But it always tells you is that you can have all of the culture and history and national civic tradition as you want. You can do a lot of good things in history. You can be iconic. It doesn't matter. If you're not willing to defend your borders, your culture will die. Um, it just will. So if you think that there's any value in your culture whatsoever, you need to protect your borders. Now, I don't think the United States is in quite the same position. I would not say that for the United States, largely because the immigrants we get are actually Western European in basic culture. Like Latino, South Americans, South Central Americans, they're essentially Christian civilization. It's the same general civilization, and then also the variant of Western civilization that colonized South America is actually very similar to the type that colonized North America. If you ever travel, you will find that you have more in common with South Americans than you do with Europeans, which is very interesting. So it's not quite the same situation here. And plus, America is one country that's made a simulation work. I'm not sure why it works here. It doesn't work other places. I think it's because our conservative country vibe, the rednecks are really good at assimilating people. I don't know why, but they are. And that's something they just don't have in Europe to assimilate new people. It's not transferable. It's an experiment. It is a cool experiment. I'm happy to be part of it. The only other thing I'd say is that, yeah, if you don't defend your culture, and that's why I'm like, boy, like, okay, fine. If we lose England, fine. If it shows everybody else in the world that you need to actually like, defend your country, we can preserve as much cultural diversity in the world as possible, great. But like, I really hope Japan, pay attention. This is what happens if you go too far with your like. You can invite people from Thailand, Cambodia, whatever. That's not gonna kill you. If you let in people who hate your culture, ultimately, you're gonna be going away, and that would be such a loss for human civilization. You can handle decline of population. I'm no longer a radical on that topic. I feel like you can make declining population work. Yeah, you might be in debt up to your eyeballs. Who's going to make you pay? The rich people? No, they want you to be fine. And that's what it's going to come down to: is that the rich people want to maintain the civilizations that they make money from or not. I think they do actually. Anyway, final topic: sports. That's a nice topic. Sports are good. So my athletic routine is basically playing soccer 2 or 3 times a week, depending on whether I'm invited to play on Fridays. Um, I used to go to the gym a lot more. Sometimes I go to the gym if I'm in that area. Like I'm probably going to go to the gym on the way back from work tomorrow. Um, I go on a mile and a half, about a mile and a half walk every morning to get coffee. I go on weekly walks, hikes to the woods. Nothing that intensive, but just enough. Oh, and then since I have my own office, I do push-ups and sit-ups in the office a few times a week, like once or twice a week. When I have time and I'm bored. So that's what I do, but it's just so good. And so the next thing that I'm doing is I'm basically going to do a triathlon in about 3 weeks. And honestly, like you feel so much better. It's like the male soul, the male id needs a few things. It does need it. It's not an optional requirement. It needs it has a drive, but it also wants to fight. And the fighting drive can make you feel a lot better about the other drive not working out. And I don't think some people really have this fighting drive, but a lot of people do. And I think there's a lot more people who have that drive don't satisfy it to fight than vice versa. And that's what sports is. Sports is an honorable fight. And I was watching Secret Edition, I think his YouTube channel, and he was talking about the drone warfare in the Russian Ukraine. It is it's weird. You're just watching a drone and it's just kind of like sitting next to somebody, and 10 seconds later it explodes and the screen goes black, and you're like, this is not an honorable fight. What we have now in military, like I respect military people, but the current way of fighting wars is not honorable. It's either that where you just have drones murdering people, or you can have gang violence, just different gangs of people just beating the crap out of each other in the streets. There's no honorable deal for fighting, except in sport. Sport is the last vestige of the honorable warrior, and that's why people like it, because when people first you like playing it because you get to be the warrior. But then you also get to watch it because you're watching an honorable fight where both sides agree on rules, and they agree to be friends at the end of it and friends at the beginning of it, and they fight it out. They get their aggression out. It's like a noble pursuit. Um, I guess you also get that. Ironically, you also get that in anime. Anime, you get the honorable fight. Um, and you get that in sport. You don't get it in war. That's why war is just like I really get Trump's perspective on war, where he's like, I really respect soldiers, I really respect military men, but I don't respect what this thing is, where you got like just thousands of people dying for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And it's like people are like, oh, you're fighting for the sacred territory of Ukraine, which is their people's. I'm like, bullshit. No, none of your other arguments work by that, based on your immigration strategies. You don't care about land belonging to a people. That's not your reason. You like it because you get to use it to demonize the right wing and also have an enemy that's not actually like that doesn't point the thumb in the eye of how stupid your policies are on different issues. But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see like what cultures survive the next 100 years and which ones don't. It's gonna be a winnowing. I hope something good survives. We'll see. Cheers.